I went for a walk this morning, and this new place that I live in has all these like balconies. And Vanessa pointed out like somebody had put like all of their crystal dishes and crystals along the edge of their balcony. She's like, that's so weird. Why would they decorate their balcony like that? I'm like, they're not decorating their balcony. It's the full moon was last night. They're moon bathing their crystals. She's like, oh, it was not just crystals. It was like crystal goblets, crystal plates, like little crystal bunnies, like clear crystal. They were doing everything. It was literally everything was out there.
That's impressive. Okay, should we start this?
Yeah.
Okay. Are we recording already? Okay.
We're recording already.
All right. So welcome to this week's Astro forecast, attuned to the Astro this week. It's an interesting week in the astrology because, well, as you see once Nadia and I talk about it, there is a lot happening and a lot of like unknown or transformative. Or I was listening to Anne Orderly, I can't remember how I say her name exactly, but she talked about this week. I love this analogy. She said, have you ever gone skydiving or scuba diving before, and you come to a point and all of a sudden there's a cliff, and like what's beyond that cliff you have no idea, and it's up to you. Are you going to go explore, or are you going to stay where it's safe? Are you willing to face your fears and dive off that cliff and go and see what's underneath there, where you might meet creatures you've never met before, or you might have to do things you've never done before, and are you willing to go there? And I just thought that was such a beautiful analogy or imagery to give this week. And I wanted to just start on a little bit more with the full moon, because Annabeth, more like being pushed off over the cliff. I know, I feel that too. I do. I'm like, I have no choice. Like, this is happening. We're going. But I wanted to talk just a little bit more about the full moon, because one of the things about the full moon that I think is really worthy of noting is that in Buddhism, this is the Buddha's birthday. And some people I've noticed on Instagram, they've said like, this is the day he reached enlightenment. I've even written that before, but my understanding is that it's his actual birthday, and they celebrate the Buddha on this day. Although this year it doesn't line up perfectly, and I need to do a bit more research into that. But it reminds me that one of the main teachings in Buddhism is emptiness. And when we come to emptiness, and this is not our nature to sit back and let problems solve themselves. It's not our nature. We want to get involved. We want to like pick it apart. We want to dissect it. We want to converse. We want to fix it. We want to, make some things happen. Yet, if we ever have that chance to sit back, and it reminds me of parenting, like with my son, when I let him have his emotion all the way through, he self-resolves whatever he's going through. And last night when I sat down at the full moon exact, I noticed that as I kind of just like unlatched myself from everything, my world, my psyche, my orbit all started to rearrange itself in a way that problem solved itself. And so I just wanted to bring that in. If you're struggling, or if this moon is like a bulldozer, or if you're being pushed off the cliff, or whatever the struggle is we're looking at the ways that our ego wants to fix or be involved, but also our emotions want validation. And with that comes our emotional addictions that are looking for external circumstances or sources to then feed us the addiction to our emotions. And so I want to say that in another way. The most highly addictive substance that a human body makes are the little peptides of emotion. And our little system, our system will seek opportunities to dose ourselves with those emotional chemicals in order to get our fix. And so we're not actually seeing the world as it is. We're seeing the world as an opportunity to get our fix. And this is like so the domain of Scorpio, because Scorpio is addiction as well as transformation, as well as all of our shadow. And if we're looking at our emotions, that we're looking for that thing to justify our grumpiness, or we're looking for that thing to justify our depression, or we're looking for that thing to justify our whatever, you fill in the blank, you're going to find it. And so this Scorpio moon is partially, Nadia is going to talk a little bit more about the Pluto retrograde, but it's partially saying, like, can you pull back enough? Can you unlatch yourself enough that you could, first of all, see the addiction that you have to your own emotion, and then look beyond it into that spacious awareness that allows for something else to be true? Does that make sense? Okay. I didn't write about that anywhere else. And so I just wanted to toss it in here. There's only so many posts you can make about stuff on Instagram. And, there's only so much space. So I thought I would just add that in here as we set the tone for this week, because this full moon is a super moon and we're going to feel it for the whole week. We're even going to feel it into next week, and we're also setting ourselves up for eclipse season coming soon too. So it's really good to have a grip or like to gain some perspective now before we go too deep. Okay. Nadia, do you want to jump in with the retrograde or wherever you want to start?
Yeah.
I'm going to mute
I
myself.
want to say that as a Scorpio moon myself, I actually had a really probably oppositional experience to everyone else. I'm very it was so gentle. Like, this is such a gentle full moon for me, that it's also in my fourth house. So I think that's a good example of how, when everyone's like, this astro is making me crazy, and it's not making you crazy, that it's just how it's hitting you, like what it's working through in your chart. And Scorpio can be quite still and silent and quiet and gentle if you're just allow yourself to like sit in just sit there in the depth of it. And so I guess as a Scorpio moon, I'm used to it, but it doesn't feel like anything. It didn't really feel like anything was happening that much. You know what I'm saying? And yet so much has happened in the last week of my life that was that much. So maybe it was just the being in the eye of the storm. But yeah, I just wanted to weigh in on that, because I feel like we often catastrophize Scorpio and Pluto. And I don't think it always has to be that way. So that's a good segue into Pluto. And I wanted to talk about, well, I just posted on Instagram, which you probably saw, but just to sort of go over that and then elaborate on it. Pluto has been in Capricorn since November of 2008. So just cycle back in your mind and think about where you were in November of 2008, about 12, 13-ish years ago. And the Pluto in Capricorn storyline has been tremendous, even though Pluto energy is pretty subtle, meaning that it's working on us every single day of our lives, and yet we're not feeling it until we get to like the crux of a Pluto transit in our chart, or something massively transformational happens. Then we can look back in hindsight and go, holy shit, like this is what was going on, but I just didn't necessarily notice it all the time. And Pluto, this Pluto in Capricorn, if you think back to what has happened since 2008, is we had the internet before 2008, but think about social media. The resurrection, I remember I got on Twitter in about 2007. It wasn't even huge yet. Maybe I looked back to my old post. It was just like, ate a pancake today. It was like really nothing. We were already on MySpace and Facebook, but then there was Instagram, Twitter, all of that stuff sort of blew up around that time. And Pluto is very much an aspect that is about secrecy, right? It's about holding our own narrative and our own self into this vessel, and using that to magnetize energy towards us, or to transform our lives. But with Pluto in Capricorn, there was structures built where we were required, almost required, expected to divulge our secrets, to put our lives in online. And I know there's probably other aspects that we're working with that, but this was sort of slowly happening. And so all of our thoughts, all of our feelings, all of our lives not only became structured in a way where we're like live journaling ourselves every single day, but they were commodified. They were turned into marketing statistics, turned into ways that companies make money. And Pluto rules this like resources and the underworld of treasures, but it's coming from this place of shadow. So as Pluto is moving through Capricorn right now, it's going to culminate and leave Capricorn in March, on March 23rd of 2023. We're going to be seeing Pluto move into Aquarius, and systems are going to change again, where we've sort of worked with what we could do with the internet, what we could do as a society. We've got into these like shadow aspects of what that might mean. And as we move into Aquarius, things will feel, I say feel because, you know, there's things that are under the surface that we don't see, which is very Plutonic, but feel a lot more egalitarian, feel like we're doing something for the energy of the collective. And yet it's coming from the old Pluto and Capricorn story. So the Pluto needs a really long time to work things out. And we're still sort of, we're in this sort of like culmination transition phase right now. So when we get to Pluto in retrograde, we have Pluto retrogrades every single year. So they're about 5-6 months-ish, about 5.5 months usually. And they really don't affect us on a day-to-day level. We don't necessarily feel it on a day-to-day level unless we have some Pluto aspects going on. And I chose a chart for someone here that actually has a lot of Pluto aspects going on. I think they know it. And we're going to talk about how the Pluto retrograde might affect that yourself specifically. There's a generational age group that might be having a lot of Pluto aspects going on. But in terms of Pluto retrograde for just everybody, there's this is the time for looking back at things in your life that you're holding on to, that you need to let go of, that you need to surrender. And of course, it depends on where Pluto is in your chart. But Pluto in Capricorn's talking about outdated structures, outdated traditions, ways that you've been sort of holding yourself back from like fully aligning to aligning into like empowered control of your life because of external pressures. And a lot of this is like the Uranus and Taurus is helping us through this, because if we think about that Pluto and Capricorn coming around the inception of us all, like all of our secrets coming to light on social media, and that be creating all this new business, right? Capricorn and all these different sort of structures and modalities of making money. Then we're coming to this point of we're like looking at our value system and like what's sustainable and what's not sustainable. So in retrogrades, we get to take a pause from all of this shadow work that we're doing and sort of sit there and say, okay, we've come up to this point. We've surrendered this. We've let go. I've let go of this. Like who in my life is not working for me? How can I let go of that relationship? What in my life is not working for me? How can I let go of that? And Pluto's not going to be like pummeling you with this. Now, Pluto doesn't usually pummel you anyways, unless you have some crazy Pluto aspect, but we're finishing something up. We're tying it up. And I know 2023 seems super far away, but Pluto has been moving through this so slowly that you are in the culmination period of whatever is happening in Pluto, with Pluto in Capricorn. So yeah, a good time to just sit back, assess, let go, surrender, witness what you've let go, and like witness how you've transformed, especially when it comes to creating structure in your life. I think that's what we're working with Pluto retrograde. And I think it's actually a perfect segue from the Scorpio full moon into Pluto retrograde and the same energy, because Scorpio is co-ruled by Pluto, and this illumination of the shadow, and I really want to emphasize the illumination, is how we're going to be able to see what other sort of transformations that we need to make during this retrograde time. But don't be scared of a Pluto retrograde, because it happens literally every year for such a huge amount of time. Half of the people here were probably born during a Pluto retrograde, because it takes up almost half of the year. So this is energy that we're well acquainted with, that we know how to work with, and it's not scary if you allow yourself to just step into the change and step into the rebirth information that's coming through. Jana, do you want to add anything about Pluto retrograde?
No, I think you completely nailed it. It's
Awesome.
really interesting to look at it from the perspective of like the whole Pluto, like a bigger picture, like you did. But yeah, keep going.
Cool. So let me just see, my notes are a little askew here. So starting tomorrow, we're moving into a Sagittarius moon, and I'm not doing this in timeline wise, because Jana and I like split up different aspects that we're talking about. But starting tomorrow, we're moving into the Sagittarius moon, and then within the space of that Sagittarius moon, we have Mercury conjunct Lilith, and I'm going through all the Lilith aspects that are coming up first. That's on April 29th. Then on April 29th, we have Lilith sextile Neptune. Then on May 1st, we have Venus conjunct Lilith. I don't know. I think that's that's in the Capricorn moon. So working with them, tuning to the moon there. So let me just go through all the Lilith stuff. So if you don't know what Lilith is a fictional point. We call Lilith an asteroid, but Lilith is actually not really anything. It is. The whole world is made out of like algorithms and mathematics. We're all creation of math and whatever numbers. So Lilith is a fictional point. It is the second empty focal point of elliptical orbit of the moon around the Earth. So when we're talking about attuning to the moon, whenever we're attuning to the moon, the point between Earth and the moon, that's Lilith. That's Lilith energy. So we're also sort of attuning into that. So that's a geometric point in the sky that marks the furthest point of the moon's orbit around the Earth. The farther away the moon is, that's Lilith's point, right? So when we're looking at Lilith in our own charts, or just even in the collective, the way that I like to phrase it, well, if you've gotten a reading from me, I just say that she's a badass bitch, but really that's me simplifying something. Is Lilith is where we either are really fascinated with topics that are connect to topics about expression, or we connect to feelings of rejection. So it's about rejection or expression, oppression, or revolution, which seems like Uranus, but really it's moving between those two pairs of opposites. Lilith herself was really objectified in classical mythology as this sexual monster creature that killed babies and was like this femme fatale that you just didn't want to mess with, and ruined your life and got into your dreams and ate your brains. I'm making that part up, but like Lilith was seen as this demon creature, but Lilith was the first partner of Adam. And one of the reasons why Lilith fled Eden was because Adam wanted to dominate her and she wanted more egalitarian and more equal relationship. Her own divine feminine libido was repressed. And then when she left, um, the angels came to her when she was in the cave and she was giving birth to like 1 billion babies. Some stories say that was Adam's children. Some stories say that she's giving birth to the children of demons. It really just depends on who writes the story. And so she didn't want to come back to Eden because they said that if she came back, she had to be subjugated by Adam. So they cursed her and said that she would be all of 100 of her babies a day would die, which basically means the progeny of Lilith. That is a really, 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 really baseline, watered down version of the story, but gives you an idea of what Lilith is coming into in any situation. She was a mother. Well, first of all, she was a partner and a lover who wasn't able to establish an equal footing with her partner. She was a mother whose children were threatened to be killed every single day. So you have the vindication of Lilith there. And then in the story, she became a demon because of her sexuality. So oftentimes when we feel like Lilith energy, there's often this undertone of sexuality and using our sexuality in a way that can either be destructive or in a way that can be expressive. So going into these Lilith aspects that are happening, Lilith is sort of, I like to also think of like, if we know Hindu mythology is very Kali in energy, right? Where Lilith is, Kali is like also a protectress as well as like this warrior goddess as well. So on April 29th, when we have Mercury conjunct Lilith, combining Mercury and Lilith, we'll see ourselves sort of wanting to express ourselves, to speak up for ourselves, to say it in probably the bitchiest way possible. You may have a really sharp tongue. You want to say what you want without any filter. The conjunction doesn't mean that it's like a square where it's necessarily like you're posing a challenge or a conflict here. It sort of makes a super planet of Mercury and Lilith combined and gives Mercury some of that like goth Lilith flair. So any information that comes out of your mouth might be sarcastic or snarky. For someone like me, where that's just a natural way of being, that might not make a difference. But if you're someone who really likes to live in an embodiment of like positive language, clear language, humble language, this is going to be a transit that may challenge you, because you may feel like, why am I talking like this? Other people around you may not understand like why you're trying to express yourself in the ways that you are, but usually it's because something is bottled up and it needs to come out at that time, especially since we're working with Pluto retrograde at the same time. And we're working in that, within that energy of letting some of that shadow out. And sometimes that's not pretty. Sometimes it comes out and it challenges other people around us, and they feel like we're being awful to them, when it's really, we're all working from our own perspective, and we use language that works for us and and the way that we're processing our emotions and our subconscious feelings of repression. So this is what's going on with the Mercury conjunct Lilith. The same day, Lilith is sextile Neptune. So this is kind of where we need to watch out for what it is that is true to us versus what it is that we're imagining is true to us. So Neptune can kind of give a haze of delusion even. So sometimes when we're angry, it's because we have a narrative in our head of how something is happening and not really the actual truth of it. And we might, I don't know, I've gotten into a number of fights with people where we have completely oppositional memories of the same situation, and both of us are like strictly like, this is the truth, this is the truth, this is the truth. Lilith sextile Neptune here wants to push the boundaries of the situation. Neptune is in Pisces and says like, I am ready to figure out what the actual truth of this is, but we might have to get into some words about it. And I'm ready to get into my subconscious mind to figure out like, what is this shadow of this situation? Why is there sort of this undertone of conflict that's going on? Or maybe for some of you, it's not an undertone of conflict. It's very, it's very strong. This is trying to work yourself way out of a situation where maybe in the past you couldn't leave because you couldn't see, as they say, the forest for the trees. So this is going to give you either the ability to see it, or you may just want to go back into your subconscious mind and go back into your little world of bitterness, resentment, and anger. But why would you want to do that during Pluto retrograde? You don't want to do that. You want to work that stuff out. And then as we go into May, on May 1st, Venus is conjunct Lilith. This is under the Capricorn moon. And so a lot of what we're working through in the next few days is about a reclamation of ourselves, really, of our body, of our hearts, of our mind, of our love for ourselves, to love ourselves fiercely, to be unapologetic about how we love ourselves, to be unapologetic about our boundaries, to make a physical, emotional, spiritual commitment to our sexuality, our sensuality, especially with Venus in Taurus, right? Lilith is in Taurus. Like we're here really wanting to embracing how we feel in this moment and our pleasure centers. And so some of the conflicting conversations that we might be having with all that other Lilith stuff going on is with our partners, if we have one, saying, this is what I need from the relationship. And, this is how I need my body to be touched. This is how I need you to speak to my heart. This is what I need. And I feel trapped. I feel trapped by or lonely, and I feel disconnected, and I feel like we need to connect again. And so Venus conjunct Lilith is going to give you sort of like this fierceness that is asking for what you need. Now, for some of us, that is completely and absolutely necessary. So this is going back into the Pluto retrograde vessel. We may be hiding our shadow stuff. We may be wanting, or our desires, our fantasies, our fetishes, not illuminating them to our partner, or even to ourselves if we don't have a partner. For some of us, we're already very demanding. So if you are already very demanding person who is always saying like, this is what I need, this is what I want, this is what I desire, then this is actually not your cue to go deeper into that. This is your cue to step back, because you may be because this is a collective astrology. So this may be happening to your partner, and you need to stop forcing your own needs and the demands on someone else. And not feel like you're entitled to just take care of yourself. So this is where this is where I like to weave it in with the Pluto retrograde, because if we're looking at our shadows, like this is how are we relating to other people? In what ways are we making demands on other people to make ourselves feel comfortable? Because all of us do that. I don't care how spiritual you are, when we want something, we want it. and very few of us are conscientious of how we're integrating that into with other people. And if you're single, and if this is, you don't have a partner, again, maybe your expectations are too high. I know so many, especially women, that have like these really high standards for this possible partner that they're letting into their lives, and they go years and years and years and like don't find anybody, because they want somebody that's exactly 6'4.5", that makes exactly $180,000, that has exactly a loft apartment. It's like they have these desires, these demands, and these wants, expectations, and the list is like their barrier. That's their barrier to love, is that list. And so this is sort of like Lilith. If Lilith is also restriction and repression, how are you restricting and repressing yourself from with Venus conjunct Lilith getting the love that you want. You know, what sort of ways are you holding yourself back? Going back to April 29th, just going into some of the other astrology that's happening, Mercury is sextile Neptune. So we may be feeling incredible, and that's the same day we have that Lilith stuff going on. So we're going to be feeling extra psychic. When we're using our words, we might feel like we're tuning into something beyond. So whatever's coming through, just listen to it first. This is a good time to meditate before you speak, whatever that Lilith, edgy Lilith stuff that wants to come, meditate on it, dream about it, connect in that way. And then on May 2nd, we have Venus sextile Neptune, which is coming right after Venus conjunct Lilith. So Venus sextile Neptune is going to be under the moon of Aquarius moon. And so this is about seeing yourself. Venus is in Taurus, Neptune is in Pisces, seeing yourself in your community, allowing yourself to fall in love with what you see. And this is just a very artistic, dreamy, beautiful conjunction. I mean, it's sextile. I mean, I see we lost 2 people. I'm done. So Jana can talk now.
Okay. So there are a couple things that are really, really big beyond everything that Nadia just spoke about, which are all, I mean, if we think about it, Nadia is talking about a lot of personal planets. And so it is very personal and like our communication and our relations. But also on Friday the 3rd, under the Capricorn moon, we have the Sun conjunct Uranus. And this is huge, you guys, because the Sun is, you know, it's the center of our solar system. It's our solar power. The Sun sometimes doesn't get as much attention because we hear so much about the Sun and people are like, oh, I want to know more about the nuances. But like really the Sun is our primary luminary, and it's conjunct Uranus on Friday. And the fact that the moon is in Capricorn, the moon is in favorable energy. So the moon is only going to bring more strength and more light to this Sun conjunct Uranus. And so this is happening in Taurus, and we need to look at like, what are the themes of both the Sun and Uranus in Taurus? And so we're looking at our bodies, we're looking at our money, and we're looking at our home. And inside of that, there's a lot of little sub context. If we look at our body, we can look at, sorry, I'm going to back up one more second. Uranus is often innovating whatever, or awakening, or bringing kind of like a lightning bolt or a stroke of insight or new information into the areas that it's touching. And so if we look at our bodies, we can start with an awakening of our psychic senses, because Taurus is also our senses. It's also our throat. And the throat is interesting because it's shared, like the voice box is Gemini, but the throat itself is Taurus. And sorry, I'm just going to change the pins for the for the sake of the recording. So some of the bigger themes that we're looking at where this is a reset is transhumanism. And like I remember I got this book, this magazine. It's like a science magazine like quite a few years ago when I was still down in Venice, and they were talking about all the technologies that, like the nanotechnology that we are finding in medical care. So the example that I'll use is the ability to hear. So they've been able to create nanotechnologies that allow people that have never heard before ever in their whole entire life to be able to hear. And so part of transhumanism is very exciting. We can have incredible advances in technology. And then there's another part of transhumanism that's like, wait, we're moving away from nature. And what does that do to us? And where does that leave us? And so this brings a lot of question. It can bring a bit of like stuff around there. If we're looking at money, we can look at the stock market. We can look at exchange rates with currencies. Like the Canadian currency is so strong compared to the US currency right now. And I mean, by 10% compared to, like 10% stronger compared to when I first came up here a year ago, or I think it's even 15% stronger. And cryptocurrencies. This is the ongoing saga of cryptocurrencies. And so Friday the 30th, and of course these ones, they're bigger, so we're already in it and it will continue on for the whole entire week and into the next week, is a reset in here. Some other, well, I said the home. And so it's also a reminder like, hey, what's going on in your home? Have you taken care of your home? We've had a whole year of like, hey, take care of your home. But have you really taken care of your home? You know, like, are you happy with what your home situation is? And when we're looking at the home, there's kind of two different areas of the home that show up in two different areas of astrology. So in Taurus, it's the actual physical structure of your home. It's the resource of your home. In Cancer, that's like the matters of your home. So that would be more relational, where this would be more, it's Taurus, it's physical, it's material. Okay. And then, sorry, I also have notes that I want to refer back to make sure that I'm not missing things that I wanted to say. Yeah. And so the looking at your own resources and, so the other major piece of Taurus and Uranus the Sun and Uranus together in Taurus is our own personal freedoms. It's our freedoms. It's rebellious, and the mainstream media doesn't report everything that's going on. But when we look at astrology, we've had this ongoing theme of uprising, protests and all of this kind of stuff. And when it was Black Lives Matter, it made the news. When it was, there are topics that are making the news, but there's tons of topics that are not making the news. Like in Canada, people are on the streets and you're not hearing about it. Somebody just said in London, massive protests, and like there are massive protests happening all over the world, but they're not being shared in the mainstream media. And so it's really interesting when we look at this desire for freedom. Well, it's trining Pluto, or well, the sun will trine Pluto later on. I'm getting ahead of myself, but it's in that sign trine, Taurus and Pluto, and like the Taurus and Pluto. Taurus and Capricorn are sign trines, and we have Pluto retrograde in there and Uranus and the Sun in Taurus. When we look at the energy between like our individual freedoms versus the control that's coming down. And so this I think is a fairly significant feature in the astrology this week. And then if we carry on through the week, I find this to be really interesting. On Sunday, the 2nd, Mercury is trine Pluto. So it's in favorable energy for Pluto. And I started to research this. And funny that that's the word I just used, is that it actually becomes this incredible, powerful force of research, like gathering data and gathering information, and how research and data and information actually provides power. And so the power of research, I think, is going to be illuminated with this trine. And I have no idea what that looks like. I don't know if that shows up in ways of control, i.e. Pluto, or ways of altering our thought processes or our perspectives, Mercury. But there's something in there to be supportive of an alteration, or to be supportive of a transformation, because it's Pluto. And one thing though about it is that it will probably happen underground. I'm not, because it's Pluto and because Pluto is retrograde, I'm not sure that this information will come to the surface just yet. It might be something that we don't see surface for a very long time, but you could probably dig and find it if you really wanted to find it, because it's there, it's happening. It would be naive to think that there isn't big data mining happening right now. We need it more than ever right now. And what that information reveals, I don't know. That's going to be the really interesting part to me. But this, because it's a favorable energy, it's probably not necessarily going to be something that causes big conflict or some of those harder Pluto things. It's probably going to be more supportive, the more supportive side of Pluto. So there's that. And then Monday is really, I should actually say Sunday, Monday, because the time, it's 2:33 a.m. PST. Mercury is square Jupiter, and then shortly, like less than an hour later, the Sun is square Saturn. And so this is really interesting because Jupiter expands and Saturn contracts. Jupiter is the guru teacher and Saturn is like the tough love teacher, but it's both karmic and it's both social. They're the social planets, they're the karmic planets, and sometimes it's the karma that we got to burn, and sometimes it's like reaping the rewards. But it's all of that, and it's in our communication, and it's in our radius, it's in our soul. So just, I can't even say what that's going to be exactly, but expansion, contraction, expansion on communication, perhaps contraction on how it moves out. I'm not sure. But anyways, I think it's interesting. And then Nadia, really quickly, do you want to do the Mercury into Gemini? I think you're muted still.
Sure. Yeah, really quickly. Mercury and Gemini. I'm Mercury and Gemini too. Day all about me. No, Mercury and Gemini is gonna open up our minds, our curiosity. Like, I think I want to talk about it more next week when we're more into it and I have a little bit more time to get into it. But this is like the master magician energy is what I call it. This is about us really understanding ourselves as human beings, connecting and reflecting each other. This is about learning and figuring out how to modulate our understanding and our language, and to appropriately use those little computer systems of our minds for the magic and the mastery of ourselves, our consciousness. And during Mercury in Gemini, we will be in retrograde from May 29th to June 22nd, and it's a super long Mercury in Gemini. I believe that it ends in July. Yeah, I can't remember the exact date. So July 11th. So we're gonna have about 2 months-ish in Mercury and Gemini. So we'll really get to know that. And when Mercury is in Gemini, most of our Mercury, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Jana, all of our Mercury retrogrades this year are in air signs. And so Mercury is in its domicile in Gemini, and then it's retrograding. So we're really gonna have to understand how to process, utilize the language in our heads and what it is that we're speaking, thinking first versus speaking first. And yeah, I mean, there's more, but as a Mercury and Gemini retrograde myself, I think I need a little more time to sit with it, to get it prepped. Thinking before speaking. Yes, exactly. Just that. All right. Do you want to get into charts?
Yes. Can I go first?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, cool. So to everybody who is just here on YouTube, if you want to join us, you can come join our classes, and we do little mini readings afterwards for the people that are on this call with us. So we'll see you next week. And this week, I'm going to start with the birthday girl.